All right. Peter Schiff says, questions nobody is asking. Now, this article is based around his latest podcast, or one of his latest podcasts, where the centerpiece of his argument is that equities markets are being a little bit too premature in their optimism on the prospects of the economy opening up after this lockdown. There's a lot of people, or I should say, a lot of robots, a lot of algorithms, assuming that we're going to have an opening up of the market relatively soon, based off of some states, some localities beginning to open up bit by bit. But I think that that is a little bit premature for those for the markets, and why? Because we're not seeing the full. We're still in the very beginning of this issue playing out. Um, so, as we know, there's a huge push to trying to get to a vaccine. There's a huge push before then of trying to get to some antiviral medicine and to do some more testing. Now, until we get to that point, we're going to see some insecurity with the general populace. That insecurity is not good for, in my opinion, this period of time in between the start of this issue and the essential vaccine coming out. We are essentially, as far as equities are concerned, in a time of uncertainty. So I would not play around in that market just for that very reason. Of course, we're going to have upticks, we're going to have downticks within that range. You can't just assume it's just going to be all downhill all the time. One of the other things that I would like to point out is that I actually use this website to just take a look at what's going on as far as stats. It's called corona.help. And corona.help actually has some data that they use from Johns Hopkins. And I apologize for the noise outside. But they actually take data from Johns Hopkins, from that data set that you guys have probably already seen for the issue. And I'm just going to try to talk closer to the mic so you guys can hear me and not hear the noise. But as you can see, this is the world. We've barely even start to hit a curve here. Take a look at the death history. Barely start to hit a curve here. Now let's take a look at the United States. United States is ahead of everybody right now as far as how many have been infected and how many have died. So let's take a look at where the United States is graph-wise. Now these are logarithmic that we're going to see here. Again, we haven't even begun to hit a curve in the country yet. Take a look at the death rate as well. Let's take a look at some cities that have been impacted by it. And they all will be different. I've heard some positive things about New York, so let's take a look at New York. Well, they've just begun to see a little bit of a curve here, but still, you never know. Things could actually start to spike up exponentially after this point, kind of like what you see here. There's a little bend here, and then it spikes up in the death rate. A little bend here, and then another spike up here. So again, this is New York City. New York City is definitely not out of the woods yet. Let's take a look at some other states as well. Let's take a look at California. California is definitely not hit any sort of shoulder, any sort of curve. A little bit here, but still it's trending generally sharply. So even California isn't looking all that great. Let's take a look at Florida. Let's take a look at Florida. People have been talking about Florida a lot recently. Yeah, Same thing, not necessarily seeing a really strong curve here. So if you guys want to take a look at this website, it's called, I'm not going to say it, even though I'm pretty sure I've already said it, but you can read it here. This is the website. You type this in, and then you're going to get to this data set and this graph. The reason why I like it is because it actually shows you a pretty nice graph, pretty nice UI. But this is my main argument as to why I think people are being a little bit, or markets, I should say, are being a little bit premature in their optimism. Because within the United States, again, has the most cases, most deaths, within the United States alone, you are seeing, you aren't seeing any massive bends to the curve. Um, until you see that, I don't really understand why there would be any sort of optimism within the markets. Yes, it's great to see that Gilead has come up with this antiviral. And of course, we're assuming that with heat, we're going to get rid of some of this as well. All that being said, until you see that curve bending, I don't necessarily see the reason for optimism in the equities markets. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section below. Let me know what you think about that website if you use it. And give the video a like. Please subscribe to the channel. And it's Black Bullion.